and we'll get started. So we'll try to do a lot of things in one episode is what we're going to try to do. I hope this goes well. I don't know, but we will give it our best. All right. We'll get started here in just a minute, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get started here in just a minute. I'm hoping for... There we go. Okay, YouTube has started, so let me do this. Now, we know YouTube's going to do that weird thing where it's going to start the... You're going to hear the live stream, and it's going to start an on-demand episode all at the same time. So, Theology Central. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go start here. Actually, it's not doing it this time. All right, so that's good. All right, I'm going to go here, turn off the live chat. That's done. I'm going to jump over here to Sermon Audio. Then I'm going to go over here to Live Webcast. There's currently 58 of them currently happening. So, hey, if you don't like what I'm doing, there's 57 other ones to listen to. All right, let me do this. Go over here. We sound okay. To Live Webcast. I think so. There's currently... All right, I think we're good to go. Now, I just need to jump back over here. Open up that. I've got that copied. I think I've got everything. All right, ladies and gentlemen, without any further delay, we go live. Wait, should I check to see if anybody's even listening to me? Let me go check and let's check that really quick. All right. Okay, the analytics is currently not working. We'll just give it a couple of minutes because I do like to see that the analytics are working, especially today. Because if the analytics show that anybody is listening, that's easier in my mind if I think I make a mistake or I mess something up or I don't really have an introduction planned out. There we go. All right. So we have some people listening. So thank you so very much. I greatly appreciate that. That's for my own psychological well-being, because if I don't think anybody is listening, I'm going to be very tempted today after I say about 7 words to stop, delete it, and start over. And so if I know people are listening, then you have no safety net. You just have to keep going. All right. So, all right, that is fixed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's see if we can do this. Wait, I don't want that. I need this. All right. We go live in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Looking at our world from a theological perspective, this is the Theology Central Podcast, making theology central.
I was minding my own business. I need you to believe that. I was minding my own business. I was not looking for any difficulty, any controversy. I wasn't looking to disagree with anyone. I was minding my own business, and I received an email. I received an email at 1:41 p.m. Central Time. It is currently 3:52 p.m. Central Time. So just a few hours ago, I received the email. I did not see it at 1:41 p.m. I didn't see it. I think I said 1:41 p.m. Central Time. I didn't see it at that time. I saw it later, somewhere around 2:30, 3 p.m. is when I saw the email, and it's now 3:52 p.m. Central Time. So it's just been a few hours since I saw the email, but I was minding my own business. I wasn't looking for any trouble, wasn't looking for any controversy. I was not looking for any conflict, but I get an email. Here's the subject line. Is this the Psalm 83 war? Is this the Psalm 83 war? And as soon as I saw that subject line for this email, I was like, oh, here we go again. I mean, anytime someone throws a rock in the Middle East, and it's like, it's the Psalm 83 war, or it's the fulfillment of this, or it's the fulfillment of that. I've seen it my whole Christian life. So I was like, okay, who sent me this email with the subject line that says, is this the Psalm 83 war? Is it a listener? And I opened it up and I'm like, oh, this is from a ministry. Skywatch TV. You can find them on YouTube, Skywatch TV. And this is Skywatch TV episode for Sunday, March the 29th, 2026, which that just happens to be today, March the 29th, 2026. It is now 3:53 p.m. Central Time. I'm coming to you live from the Theology Central studio, located right here in Abilene, Texas. And I want you to know I was minding my own business, but I saw that email. I'm like, okay. So what am I going to do? Well, I could click on it. I could be taken to the YouTube channel. I could click play, and I could just listen to it myself in private. But that's no fun. So I grabbed some software. I turned the video into an MP3 file, downloaded the MP3 file, then uploaded it to my software. And so we're going to listen to the video together. I have a feeling I know which direction it's going to go. And we'll talk about it. And we'll look at it from a hermeneutical and theological perspective. It's going to fit perfectly. We're always working on hermeneutics, so it will fit with those discussions. But before we do that, I need to just knock out a couple of things because I haven't been able to do any broadcasts the last few days. And so I just want to go ahead and try to do a number of things in this episode so that when I get back into the normal flow, I can be done with a lot of these announcements and get some of these things over with. Number one, I made a comment that we had been charged for some things I was not expecting. If everyone remembers, before this podcast was supported and funded and everything was paid for by Victory Baptist Church located in the middle of nowhere, Texas. Well, that church no longer exists. The building has been sold. The bank accounts have been closed. That church no longer exists. So that means this podcast is now supported by you, the listener. You don't support it, it goes away unless I want to just try to have an expensive hobby of being able to broadcast and spending hours working on broadcast at my own expense. But you would like to at least, it's not even about making money. You just want to be able to cover the expenses. Well, we know 2026 is pretty much taken care of because a listener gave enough money to basically pay for all podcasting fees for an entire year. And I'm forever grateful for that, especially during that weird transition, not knowing what was going to happen. Because I really thought in some ways, by the time we got to 2026, this podcast would no longer exist. Now, I don't know what will happen in 2027. When we get there, we will see. So someone gave enough money to cover all expenses for an entire year. Great. But I was not expecting that there were some things coming due that I had forgotten about because it just came out of the church bank account. And that was the cost of some domain names and some other things. It came to about $50. So I thought, oh boy, here we go. I'm going to have to bring this to the attention of listeners. And if nobody responds, it's going to be that's kind of a sign that maybe the podcast has run its course. You need to move on because if people will not respond and help out, you got to make a decision. Well, the good thing is I think it was less than 24 hours. It may have been less than 12 hours. Someone went to theologycentral.net or they went to Sermon Audio and looked for the Give tab under Theology Central. And they gave $51, and I think it was like $51.34, something along those lines. I immediately took those funds and paid for the domain names. That's taken care of for a year. We don't have to worry about that for another year. I think there was one other thing it covered. And so the money that was given to pay for all the podcasting fees is still there. We're not short on anything. So we're right back to where we need to be. So that individual, thank you so very much. I think it's someone who listens to us via YouTube. I really do appreciate that. It was quick. It was fast. I didn't have to, do you ask again? Do you do an entire episode? I don't want to do, yeah. If I have to start asking all the time, I'm just going to be done because that's the last thing you want. So thank you so very much. That is done, taken care of. And now we'll see what happens when we get to the end of 2026. We'll see. Now, hopefully it goes well, but we're in a good place there. So thank you. Now, one other thing I have to address. I did receive notification from our pod page, theologycentral.net. That's our pod page. Someone has left a review of this podcast. And the title of the review is Calm Down. They may be even exclamation points after it. I don't know. Calm down. And I'm like, oh, no. And what's crazy is you always kind of get the more negative type feedback. It's always when you're not really maybe going through, there's some things going on for you that's not great. And sometimes that's when you get the negative ones. It's never like when things are going bad or you're frustrated or you're discouraged or you're not feeling well, whatever the situation is. That's rarely the time you get a positive review or you get a positive email. No, it's always when things are not great. Then you'll get the discouraging one. So this one said, calm down. So I was like, oh no, this is going to be really bad. Now, it turns out it's not near as bad as I thought it was going to be. It's actually it's more constructive criticism, which I do appreciate. But here is do you want to hear it? Do you want to hear it? They didn't leave a voicemail. You can leave a voicemail on theologycentral.net. Some people have left voicemails. Let's just say some of them have been pretty bad, okay? I should download some of them and let you hear them, okay? But I won't go into some of those. But this is the review they left. Now, to be fair, they did mark us as 5 stars, so I do appreciate that. I don't know if they did that because they felt if they left 1, it wouldn't get posted. Now, just remember, Podpage, they have to contact me, and then I have to log in, and I have to go in and manually make it available. I try to make all reviews available no matter how negative they are. I don't try to delete any negative ones. I try not to. Because I want it to try to be, as real as possible. So I'll have to log in and see what I can do to get this one posted. But here's the words, or here's what it says. Your content is so helpful. Oh, wow. Okay. All right, that's good. Let's just stop right there, ladies and gentlemen. This is the end. I'm retiring. Someone said my content is helpful. That's it. I'm going out on top. The Theology Central podcast ends today. And just remember, I was told my content was helpful. But you know how that goes, right? You know what's going to happen. I got a little nice comment there. Your content is so helpful. But can anyone guess what the next word is? But, which basically negates what just comes before it. Okay, so your content is so helpful, but you seem to me so excitable, I can barely make it through a podcast. I really mean to be helpful, and I do appreciate that. I do, and I do take it as them being helpful. I do, because again, they left a 5-star, so that doesn't, create a major because your podcast is greatly impacted by negative reviews. They really are. And some podcasting apps, if you're down to 1 star, then the algorithm kind of buries you. So that's why I'm always asking people to go to the Apple Podcast app and give me 5 stars, or in anywhere where you can give a rating. So, because it's very helpful. So they said, I really mean to be helpful, albeit direct. So they want to be helpful, but they are being direct, and that's okay. Got no problem. I tend to be direct. If you want me to just go away, I will. I don't want anyone just to go away. The only reason I would want someone to go away is if you don't like what I'm doing, then why do you keep listening if you hate everything I do? That's the only time I ever say, hey, there are other broadcasts to choose. I can find you a podcast you will like. So I don't want anyone to go away, though. It says, but I almost never offer a suggestion and wanted to ask for a calmer podcast. Respectfully in Christ, they give their name pastor. So this is a pastor who contacted me. They would like a calmer podcast. All right. First, I greatly appreciate them at least contacting me and being helpful. They didn't, a lot of times when I get attacked, it's much more negative. So this is a very kind of positive one. This is somewhat encouraging. They're listening and they would like a calmer podcast. Here's what I will say. On one hand, there are times, and if you listen to me, I almost always tell you, either by the end or maybe even in the next broadcast, man, I got way too upset. I got way too frustrated. I got mad. I started yelling, throwing things. And I usually will acknowledge when I feel I went too far. And I always do feel bad about that. So I acknowledge that. And if you'll notice what I tend to do, if I do one, and it's usually within reviews when I lose my mind, I may yell and scream. But if you'll notice what I do, almost inevitably, that negative will then lead to 3 or 4 or 5 episodes where I'm typically doing more teaching, and it's much calmer, and it tries to make something positive out of me getting so frustrated and so upset. It may turn into a discussion about hermeneutics. It may turn into exegeting an entire passage of scripture. So I always try to balance it out. When I get really mad, I usually acknowledge it. And then I try to do broadcast to turn that, what I felt turned negative, into something positive. So I am very, very aware that I can get very loud, very upset, very animated, and I can literally be throwing things right here behind this microphone. So I will acknowledge that. However, I do have to state this. If anyone knows me, they know that my natural state tends to be, I can be very excitable, right? I can be reading a book and I will pace back and forth and talk out loud to the book and go, "What are you doing? No, don't open that door," right? I can get all excitable when I'm watching sports, or if I'm watching, it doesn't matter. I can talk back and yell, and I get excitable. I do that, right? I do that. So when I am listening and responding to things, there's a part of me, I'm going to be me, right? I can't be, if I'm not me, then what you get is a calmer podcast, but it's being performative. And then my question would be, if I give you the calmer podcast, what about the people who would like a more excitable podcast? Who do I please? The calmer crowd or the excitable crowd? Which group, which team do I try to appease? Which one do I appeal to? And what I've discovered in my life, and if you're a pastor, you know this, you can't please everyone. In fact, if you try, you get lost in it and you become a performer. And I don't want to be a performer. I want to be me. Right? I want to be me behind this microphone. I am just a sinner with a microphone, and you get the good, you get the bad, you get the flaws, you get whatever I am is what you get. And it's not always good. And a lot of times you hear my frustration, my anger, my depression, my discouragement. You're going to hear it. And I would liken it to the Psalms, where the psalmists are real. And what they want to yell out to God, if they want to be, they are real. And I want to be real. I don't want to be, "Good afternoon, everyone. This is National Public Radio coming to you from Abilene, Texas. We talk about the world from a theological perspective. Thank you for your support." Now, I don't want to be that way. At the same time, I don't want to be performative by being excitable and yelling just to yell. I want it to be whatever I am at that given moment. And when I do reviews, remember, I'm going in blind. I have no idea what's going to happen. I don't go into it going, when I get to the 47-minute mark, I'm going to lose my ever-living mind and talk about driving to the Eskimo Hut here in Abilene, Texas. If you don't know what that is, it's a drive-through liquor store, and I'm going to drive through the drive-through window, and I'm going to get as much alcohol as possible. When I start talking the way, because I get really frustrated, and I get really upset, and I get really mad, and I get really angry, and you get the real me. Now, maybe I shouldn't be, because there is a point where my anger, my frustration can go too far, and I will acknowledge that. But that's why I tell you I'm a sinner with a microphone, right? I tell you that. And I would say, there's examples of the Bible, people tending to say some pretty strong things in some pretty strong ways. I'm a human being and I have emotion. And I think talking about God and theology and sin and reality and pain and suffering and hermeneutics, I think human emotion plays a part. Human emotion is not the determiner of truth, And my view of truth should not be based off my emotion, but I can't deny that my emotions exist. So I appreciate that. I cannot promise you I'm going to be calmer to your liking. I can't promise you that. And I can't, but I do know that there are times I get too excitable. And, we're about to do a review, so there's a chance that you may want to be, be prepared to hit pause or hit stop and come back later, all right? So we're going to do our best. So that's the best I can do. I hope that's okay. It's always difficult, like, who do I appeal to? Who do I try to appease? Like, if I look at it from a purely fleshly, humanistic perspective, do I appease people who send in a review, or do I appease the people who send in enough money to cover an entire year of podcasting? That listener who paid for an entire year of broadcasting, it's almost like, no, what? I should send them the reviews and go, what do you think? But see, that's from a human perspective. From a human perspective, or from a more spiritual perspective, I can't even worry about the person who sent in the money to pay for an entire year. I can't be trying to appease them either. I got to just try to turn on the microphone and be real and search for truth and struggle for truth with good, bad, and ugly, and whatever you get is whatever you get. And because then I'm being real. Because even if I start trying to say, well, this person sent in this much, I got to make them happy. If I do that, then I just become a puppet. So I try to be as real as I am. And sometimes that's an excitable person. I can have strong, you should just listen to me talk about any subject. If you were just talking about anything, I'm probably going to be louder than anybody else you're talking to. I'm going to be much more excitable probably than other people. So there's good to that. Look, it's bad too. I know that. All of my excitement can be good because you're like, that person has zeal. That person has passion. But then it can turn into, when things are not going right, it can get dark and depressing. And those emotions is a double-edged sword. So I know there's times I go too far, and I do apologize for that. I don't want to drive people away because I'm yelling like I'm losing my mind, but there's sometimes I think I'm actually losing my mind. So I don't know, but there you go. I can't promise you I'm going to do a calmer broadcast. I can just promise you I'm just going to continue to try to be as authentic as I can. And that authenticity comes with a flawed human being who's a sinner, who probably will scream, probably will yell, probably will hit the table. And there's times I can be much more reserved and calm. Listen to my broadcast that I do usually at 1 or 2 in the morning. Usually I'm much calmer. It's a different vibe. Listen to broadcasts where I'm doing, but even in broadcasts where it's calmer, you can still hear, I'm not like, let's talk about that. I'm not monotone. I don't know. So look, a lot of people don't like how excitable I am. I know that. And I probably have hurt the success of this podcast by not trying to be different, but I don't want it to be produced. I want it to be real. And this is a real person in a real room in West Texas who sits down behind a microphone, and whatever mood or whatever state I'm in is what you're going to get. So I hope that makes sense. But thank you so much for the feedback. And to anyone else out there who doesn't like, because I know there's been some episodes lately where I've gotten pretty upset. So I'm afraid that this is getting ready to happen right now, but are you ready? So here we go. As everyone knows, if you've been paying any attention, the United States of America is involved in a military conflict with Iran. We could have a long discussion about this, all right? A long discussion, and I could have very, 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 very strong opinions. And I don't know what's about to be said and what we're going to review, but let me make it very clear. If I criticize in any way, shape, or form the current military conflict that America is engaged in with Iran, if I criticize it, if I criticize what the president is doing and what our government is doing, no one no one better email me and tell me that, oh, you're not patriotic and you don't love this country and you're a liberal and you should just get out. You don't care about America. I wore the uniform for this country for 19 years of my life, almost died, and now I'm 100% disabled vet. So anyone who has a problem with what I say, you can back off and not throw the "you're not patriotic and you don't love America" card. You can just take that somewhere else, okay? You can just go away. All right, I wore the uniform. I did everything was asked of me. So, and one of the things you do in the military is hopefully we're defending and protecting those rights that the Constitution allows, which is the right to disagree with the government. I don't have to agree with the government. And disagreeing with the government should not mean you get thrown into a category that you're left or you're woke or you're liberal or you're Democrat. I can disagree with everything Trump does, and you don't have to put me in a category other than someone who disagrees. All right. So I just want to get that out of the way because I don't know what's about to be said, but because I know someone will you're just a commie, you're a liberal, you support an Islamic terrorist or whatever nonsense is going to be thrown at me. So you can just leave that alone, go somewhere else. And great. And look, and if you want to support it, by all means, I think they're increasing the age for those who can join the army. By all means, go join and put on a uniform and go fight. All right. So, you don't yell at other people. Go put your life on the line. Go do it. All right. Instead of yelling at everyone else to go do it for you. All right. So now that I got that out of the way, are you ready? Let's find out what this ministry is going to be talking about. They're asking, is this the war, the Psalm 83 war? I can almost guarantee you can hear my anticipation. They're going to be talking about the current conflict with Iran. I could be wrong, but I mean, what else are they referring to? Is this the Psalm 83 war? What do you think they're referring to? And it was released today? I mean, come on. They're talking about the conflict with Iran. I could be wrong. Well, let's find out. We start right now. Skywatch TV. You can find them on YouTube. Here's what was sent to me. Remember, I was minding my own business.
For decades, the Middle East has been a land of chaos, war, and terror. And all of this while tensions smolder in every direction, continuing to threaten global stability on every level. Now, pivotal events are unfolding which present a series of monumental questions. Why did the United States and Israel strike Iran? Why now? Is it tied to the Abraham Accords? We've been told Iran was days away from nuclear warheads, but is that true? And as the war reshapes the region, are we seeing the alliances the Bible foretold, like Persia in Ezekiel 38 and 39? We're going to talk about all of this and more right now. Hello, everybody, and welcome back.
Those are all good questions. The Ezekiel 38, 39, I wasn't prepared for that, so we could get in. Maybe we'll have to do some entire. We could do Ezekiel 38 and 39. We could do the 5 layers on each one of those. I can't do that right now, but maybe we could. We'll see. So, and it is true. I am a little bit perplexed by this, and you got to remember because I want to be transparent here. So I came into the military when Desert Storm, right? That was the first major war after I joined. So Desert Storm, I get deployed for that. Then after September the 11th, 2001, obviously we go to Afghanistan. I won't get into all the things that happen here. And then we're going to go into Iran. And why are we going to go into Iran? Or not to Iran, into Iraq. I'm sorry. We're going to go into Iraq because they have weapons of mass destruction. They have weapons of mass destruction. And when I was in the military, and I had to attend briefings about the supposed weapons of mass destruction. And I won't get into all the details and everything, but I can just tell you this. I was like, no, there's no weapons of mass destruction. No, there's no weapons of mass destruction. No, there's no weapons of mass destruction. This is ridiculous. This is not true. There's no way. And whatever briefings were we given of supposed intelligence telling us there's weapons of mass destruction, I'm just like, no. They're not there. It's ridiculous. It's not. And well, there was no weapons of mass destruction. So now we were told countless times, Iran is 5 seconds away from a nuclear weapon. Iran is 5 seconds away from a nuclear weapon. If we don't do something, so we did some bombing. Was it last summer? And supposedly everything was destroyed. And the next thing we turn around, no, Iran is 5 seconds from a nuclear weapon. We have to go back to war with them. I thought we destroyed, we demolished, we decimated their capabilities. In less than a year, they're back to being 5 seconds away from a nuclear weapon. Okay. Well, what about North Korea? So do we bomb everyone who's 5 seconds away? I mean, so I'm already pretty skeptical of the claim. Very, very skeptical of the claim. Let me just make it very clear. I'm not as dogmatic this time as I was with the situation in Iraq. In Iraq, there was just too much information and too much intelligence that seemed to contradict anything that was being said. So, and I was much more in tune at that time. So I'm not going to say Iran was or wasn't. I am highly suspicious of the claim. Let me state that. I am highly suspicious of the claim. But I don't want to get into the geopolitical side of it. I want to know how they're going to connect this, because Christians always do this. Anytime someone throws a rock in the Middle East, they're like, this is a fulfillment of biblical prophecy. At this point, every biblical prophecy should have been fulfilled. 100. And Desert Storm was supposedly, this is it, this is it, this is it. Every time something goes on, Russia, Ukraine, it doesn't matter. This is a fulfillment, this is a fulfillment, this is a fulfillment. And then, well, that happens, it moves on. And then next thing you know, oh, this is it, this is it, this is it. And it's like, I'm so tired of being told, this is it, this is it. And then, well, life just continues on. At some point, all of the Christians who keep doing this need to stop doing it and go, we're losing all credibility. So I'm not saying this is what they're about to do, but I'm looking for what they're going to do with Scripture, especially Psalm 83, because that's what the title of the email was. That's what I'm curious for.
To Skywatch TV, I'm Joe Artis Horn. Today, we start a series of programs that I'm going to describe at the onset as urgent and timely and very sobering. But before we dive in, let me introduce who's here. She's a credentialed ordained reverend with a degree in Bible and theology, a powerful voice in Christian television. Please welcome Donna Howell.
Donna Howell. So is a female ordained minister? That could lead to lots of theological questions right there, couldn't it? All right. I don't want to get sidetracked though. We got to stay focused. All right. So I'm interested in what her expertise is in this area. I mean, she may have more expertise on Psalm 83 than I do. So I'm more than willing to hear that. But let's just see where this goes.
And she's a legend and pioneer of podcast radio, Christian television personality, and best-selling author of the Red Wing Saga, Sharon Gilbert. And his broadcasting career has spanned for more than 40 years. He's the best-selling author of the groundbreaking books, Last Clash of the Titans, The Great Inception, and The Second Coming of Saturn. Please welcome Derek Gilbert. I want to say right here at the beginning of these programs that when I seriously need to look at analysis of the Middle East, and I take what the mainstream media is propagandizing, and then I try to interpret through the agenda what.
I get so tired of hearing anytime the mainstream media reports something it's propagandizing, it has an agenda. Oh, but anybody else, Fox News, I guess they don't have any propaganda. No, they don't have an agenda. No. I guess Mark Levin, does he have an agenda? Does Tucker Carlson? Does Ben Shapiro? Does Glenn? I mean, it's like, it's turned into, if we hear any report that we don't like, then it's propaganda. It's false. Anytime we hear a news report that goes against our ideology, it's just immediately labeled propaganda and false. How about we stop doing that and we listen to facts and try to determine what the truth is and stop labeling right, left, propaganda, fake news. So I guess what they're going to do is not propaganda. They have no agenda. No. It's just the mainstream media. So we can't trust the mainstream media. We have to trust Skywatch. I bet you Skywatch TV, though, is viewed as being trustworthy. But any source that would go against them is untrustworthy. You see the game? That's what this leads to is we only listen to sources that agree with us, and any source that doesn't agree with us is propaganda and false. And that's the world we live in. So these group of people think they're right. These group of people think they're right. And they all live within their own little echo chamber, and it's just ridiculous. It should be about facts and truth. But no, and what you'll do when you're arguing with someone and you quote a source, they'll be like, that source is not true. And it's like, okay, so then where do we go? Where? And so everyone just picks the sources that agree with them. Isn't that amazing? And for some reason, the sources that agree with you are always right.
Those predetermined narratives are supposed to translate for the purposes of influencing, the population of news-consuming individuals. When I want a sobering analysis of what is really going on in the Middle East through the lens of the Bible and Bible prophecy, I'm telling you the truth. I go to the Gilberts.
Yep.
Derek and Sharon
Yep.
are absolutely, completely engaged in these conversations, constantly talking about the rise of anti-Semitism and what is really happening with wars in Iran, how Israel might be involved, and what interests the United States might actually have, as opposed to what we're being told they have. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We go to the Gilberts.
Yeah. Yes.
You can't trust anybody else, but you can trust the Gilberts. I don't know who the Gilberts are. Never heard of the Gilberts, but I guess the Gilberts are the voice of truth. Isn't that convenient, right? Everybody else know. They will give us the truth, right? So we're going to listen to the Gilberts and I guess find out the truth about the Middle East. What are they not telling us? All right, let's find out.
I'm going to try to stay organized today, ladies and gentlemen, because we have so much we want to cover, and we're going to try to squeeze a ton into these programs. So let's just hit the ground running. Derek, right now, people are seeing headlines at the time of this recording. The United States has now been several days into an alignment with Israel, attacking Iran, and the podcast sphere to mainstream media echo chamber has just been spinning, and no one is agreeing, and you've got church leaders saying one thing, and I have people in social media saying the most vile things about Israel, and now Donald Trump, and he's doing it to hide the Epstein files, and pick your day, spin the wheel, 50 narratives an hour on what all this is, and I think that the chaos in part is designed to throw people off of what is really happening. In your view, as someone who I value enormously on this issue, why did the U.S. and Israel strike Iran?
Well, thank you, Joe, because I know you are also deep into the news, and so your confidence is high praise, and we take it as such. Having been to Israel 5 times now,
right?
I mean, it doesn't make us an expert on Middle Eastern politics, but we do have friends who live there and who can give us insights from inside Israel. We're also blessed as a ministry, Skywatch TV, to be affiliated with Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis, who is an expert on Middle Eastern affairs.
Right.
Why did the U.S. and Israel attack Iran? Iran is a theocracy that is governed by a virulent strain of Shia Islam that believes it has to take over the world. Now, traditionally, there's a fundamental difference between Shia Islam and Sunni Islam, and it has been the Sunni strain of Islam, which makes up about 85% of the world's Muslims, that one had to worry about, because in Sunni Islam, any leader who could gather enough men and weapons to himself could declare himself to be the Mahdi and then lead this righteous holy war. And there have been any number of would-be Mahdis over the centuries. Most recently, al-Baghdadi, who was the leader of the Islamic State beginning in 2014. But there was the 19th century, there was a Mahdi that led to a big rebellion in Sudan that the Brits had to go and put down. And, going back through history, any number of Sunni Muslims declare himself the Mahdi or be declared the Mahdi because of his success on the battlefield. Shias believed until 1970 that they weren't even supposed to try to wage jihad until the 12th Imam returned from occultation. He went into occultation, sort of like King Arthur going off to the island of Avalon, where he would return in the hour of Britain's greatest need. The 12th Imam would return when it was time to take over the world. This was in the year 941 AD. They're still waiting. But in 1970, Ayatollah Khamenei, who led the Islamic Revolution in 1979, wrote a book called Islamic Government, where he argued that to prevent chaos, Ayatollahs, rightly guided leaders, would have to take over the reins of government. Instead of just being religious advisors to government, there was sort of a separation of church and state. They would need to become the government. This was an innovation in Shia Islam. And not only to rule over Shia Muslims, but all Muslims, which put them at odds with Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the UAE, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this was the big difference. The Shias controlling Iran, 90 million people on the verge of getting nuclear weapons, literally believe that they have to take over the world. Now, they've been fomenting chaos through proxies in the region. Hezbollah, Hamas,
Right.
the Houthis in Yemen for years. And frankly, beginning in 1982, when Iran-backed terrorists blew up the U.S. Marine barracks in Beirut, Lebanon, President Reagan had sent U.S. Marines to try to help stabilize Lebanon after several years of civil war. 240.
I just want to jump in for a couple of things, and you can do some research on this. And again, I'm responding in real time, so if I have any of my facts wrong here, you can verify. But I think if you want to talk about Iran, you have to go back to 1953 when there was a coup in Iran, because this is very, very critical, all right? Remember, Iran had a democratically elected prime minister. I do not remember his last name, but I just know he nationalized Iran's oil, all right? And this ticked off Britain, and I guess you could say it ticked off the U.S. or it concerned the U.S., but they had problems. So just remember, oil becomes the issue. Just keep this in mind. Oil becomes the issue, all right? So the USA, the United States of America, we'll just call it the CIA because they're involved in this. The CIA and Britain's, what do they call it? M16, M16, whatever their organization is. They organize a coup, all right? So the monarchy, the Shah, was strengthened and ultimately restored. So the democratically elected leader basically is removed from power. The Shah is strengthened and restored. And listen, this may have been debated in the past. It's not debated anymore. It's acknowledged. The coup was planned and executed under the direction of the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States of America. It removed the democratically elected government and restored the Shah to power. That's a fact. All right? So you can't even get around that. So America was already involved in messing with the government and how things were working in the 1950s. So whatever mess happens, remember, America was helped put some of these people in power. It was the United States of America who caused a lot of these problems. All right? All right? So what ultimately happens is in the 1979, I believe is the year. It's somewhere in, I think it's 1979. You have the Iranian Revolution, right? The Iranian Revolution, okay? And this is when Ayatollah Khamenei comes to power, and this is when they become an Islamic Republic. I think that's 1979, all right? And this is where the modern day hostility towards the United States really explodes. But remember, in 1953, we were messing with who's going to be in power and not in power in another country. And we're involved in helping a coup takes place. All right. So why would Iran distrust the United States? Why? Why foreign interference is such a powerful theme in Iranian politics, right? Because the 1953 coup would stand as a symbol of how the West interferes in their lives and trying to control what they do. And this is a very, whether you want to call it propaganda or not, it's based off truth. This is why they don't like America. We overthrew their democratically elected leaders and put someone in power that we thought would be more advantageous for us. Okay, so yeah, we could get it. So just make sure we understand that. That's hit. Now you can go research that. You can read about it. You should have learned that in school. You should have learned that in history, right? I mean, that's pretty well known what America was playing games in the 1950s. And that state, and we wanted to be in charge from about 1953 to somewhere in the 1970s. What we wanted stayed true until the Iranian Revolution takes place, and Ayatollah Khomeini is put into power in 1979. Then it becomes very anti-America. But just remember, we were the one already messing with things before we get to this. And you could argue why they'd be like, we can't trust America because who knows when they're going to interfere and try to get rid of whoever's in power for their own agenda and their own good. You know, America's not always the cowboy in the white hat in these stories, okay? But you can go research a lot of that yourself.
41 Marines and dozens of others killed in that bombing. President Reagan, instead of responding, just said, that's it. We're just going to pull everybody out, let them have it. And that has been the policy of every president since President Reagan. Bush 1, Bush 2,
Right.
Clinton, Obama, Biden, until President Donald Trump said, hey, that's it, no more. I know we've been hearing for decades. In fact, this was my reaction when I started hearing the run-up to this. Benjamin Netanyahu, who's been very prominent in Israeli politics for several decades now, has been warning about Iran with nuclear weapons for a long time. Back in 2006, when I was hosting a daily secular political talk show, I mean, traditional conservative talk radio, that was me. And I was hearing, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, or as we called him back then, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad.
Yeah.
And other conservative commentators like, Sean Hannity, Bill O'Reilly, et cetera, talking about we can't let them get a nuclear weapon. It's like, we've been hearing this for 20 years.
Right.
But we have to admit that our political leaders have access to information that we, looking in from the outside, don't have.
Right.
This was the final straw, that they were close enough. In fact, President Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, recently said, look, when we sat down, Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff sat down with the Iranian envoys, they were told by the Iranians that they had gathered enough fissile material to make 11 nuclear warheads. And they were very proud of this. It's like not only were they not abiding by the JCPOA that had been agreed to by President Obama, that they had willingly just gone way beyond it. This was not material for a domestic energy program because it's refined way beyond what you need for producing energy.
And it's underground. It's hidden.
And it's hidden underneath
nuclear reactors that are
granite
for
mountains,
power
right.
are above ground.
Exactly. So when Witkoff and Kushner reported back to President Trump.
Okay, now I had to look this up. I couldn't go with all of this from memory, but yes. So I wanted to look this up. After the United States of America and Israeli airstrikes on Iranian nuclear sites in June 2025, President Donald Trump stated Iran's nuclear facilities were completely and totally obliterated. The White House claimed the strikes completely destroyed key nuclear infrastructure. Yeah, that's the word, infrastructure, right? And in 2026, Trump continued saying the nuclear threat had been eliminated or crushed. And he said this in a number of speeches and statements. All right. So they can turn around and go, oh, well, President Trump realized that they were about to get, well, what happened in 2025? The same government who said it was obliterated, all of a sudden in 2026 is like, oh, we're 5 seconds away. We have to go to war. Wait, what happened? In less than a year, they were able to rebuild their entire infrastructure, able to be 5 seconds away from a nuclear weapon, and nobody's going to raise any questions about, well, they've got information that we don't have. Well, then why did they tell us, the American public, that they obliterated and destroyed the capability in 2025? And then less than a year later, we're in a war. Yeah, and the same government that we're supposed to trust told us there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and there were none. I don't know. At this point, I'm becoming a little bit suspicious. And the reason I get suspicious about these things is because government leaders make the claims, and it's people like I and people who are in the military wearing the uniform who go off and die. And if they go off and die for a claim that later is admitted not to be true, I don't know. I don't care who the president is. I don't care which party's in power. That should tick off Americans because it's your sons and daughters and fathers who are going to be sent to die. So let me state this again. After the United States and Israel launched airstrikes on Iranian nuclear sites in June 2025, President Donald Trump stated Iran's nuclear facilities were completely and totally obliterated. The White House claimed the strikes destroyed key nuclear infrastructure. In 2026, even this year, the Trump stated the nuclear threat had been eliminated. So in 2026, he says it's been eliminated. And then in 2026, we're 5 seconds away from it again. I'm sorry. That makes no sense. So somebody was not telling the truth. So which is it? Now, I've also heard that the reason we're going in is because the Iranian government killed all of those protesters. So were we going to go in and to get justice? Were we going to kill? Well, I thought if we killed the leaders who supposedly did it, well, then did we not get the justice for the people? Are we going to change the regime? Oh, we're going to try to overthrow government again and install the government that we want? Because that always works out when America plays those games, doesn't it? Are we going to try that? Or no. Now we're going in because they were 5 seconds away from a nuclear weapon, even though we supposedly completely obliterated their capabilities. I'm sorry, something doesn't make any sense. Now, let's see if they mention this massive inconsistency here.
It was pretty clear that the Iranians were just trying to stall for time. There is a doctrine in Islam, and it's traditionally been more used by Shias because they've been the minority, the ones who've been oppressed by the Sunnis, called taqiyya, which means you can lie. And especially you can lie to the kuffar, meaning, us, the unbelievers, in the service of Allah. So,
and Donald Trump never lies. In fact, he's the most righteous, holy man we've ever put. Yeah, let's make they can lie in the service of Islam, and American politicians just lie for what? For Jesus? I mean, what are American politicians lying about? Because they never lie. Never, whatever.
While they're saying one thing, they're doing something else. And for them, it's not a sin.
Right.
We as Christians are told, thou shalt not lie.
Right.
Muslims are like, yeah, it's fine as long as you're lying to unbelievers.
Right.
So I think this is why letting a theocratic death cult, which, I'm sorry if that offends anyone, but that truly is what Islam is at its fundamentalist base, get his hands on nuclear weapons for the Western world would be suicide.
Let me just throw in also that Benjamin Netanyahu and others leading Israel have been doing their best to suppress the production of nuclear warheads in Iran. One of those was Stuxnet. Do you remember?
And let me just make this very clear. When it comes to wartime, okay, deception in battle, deception in warfare, deception in geopolitical strategy is used by all governments and nations. You lie, you send out misinformation, you confuse, you deceive in order to protect your agenda, come on, that's not just they're Muslims and they're bad and they like to lie. There's plenty of things in the Quran against lying, so let's just get that right. So, come on, strategy, the Iranian government, maybe a theocratic government, but the point is governments lie. Governments send out misinformation. Governments deceive. Government uses deception, especially under military matters. They do that constantly.
Remember that?
Yes, yes. The worm, the computer worm that was released into Iranian computers
Yes, exactly, which
about 20 years ago.
sort of broke their system for a while. But I would say it is the Lord who has had his hand on this region and saying, not yet.
Right.
This will only happen when I say it can happen.
Yes.
Yep.
Regardless of the fallen realm thinking that they're controlling things,
Right.
he is in control.
Well, if God is in control, then let God take care of the problem. If God wants them to have a nuclear weapon, they'll get a nuclear weapon. If God doesn't want them to have a nuclear weapon, then they won't have a nuclear weapon. And he doesn't need the United States of America to do anything because God would have, if he's in control, he has the power to fix what he's going to do, right? We won't get into that. That's a whole theological issue, right? All right. Now, at this point, I'm getting nervous because we're at 51 minutes. I know my introduction went long. I don't know if we're going to get to Psalm 83. Man. All right, let's see if they're going to get here.
Right.
That's right.
I love that.
Derek, Sharon, do you feel like any of what we're seeing play out right now in the Middle East is connected to the Abraham Accord?
Oh my goodness, yes. Because what we've seen is Iran actually attacking its neighbors. And I would say part of that, at the very least, is connected to the Abraham Accords. There is a pan-Arab movement. In other words, Iran wants to take over the whole region and control it for Allah. The Abraham Accords didn't play into that plan. So I think that may be one of the reasons they're attacking
Yeah,
it.
and there's we need to remember that the Persians are not Arabs. I
Exactly.
made that mistake once. There was an Iranian exchange student that I was in college with, and
So if you don't know, the Abraham Accords, if I was teaching in church or in a classroom, how many can tell me what the Abraham Accords were? They were an agreement to normalize relations between Israel and I don't remember how many, a number of Arab nations, right? I don't remember all of them. And it was brokered by the U.S. and it focused on, diplomatic relations, trade, some form of security operation. It wasn't necessarily about Iran directly, if I remember correctly. So many Arab states share kind of a common concern about Iran's power, right? So the Accords tried to create kind of a regional alignment, Israel plus the Gulf states plus the U.S., all right? And it was like, I guess you could almost see it as kind of an alliance against Iran, all right? So the current war obviously involves U.S. and Israel versus Iran. Supposedly it's because of nuclear tensions. Maybe it's because of longstanding Iran-Israeli hostility. So I don't. Maybe the Accords. Maybe we could say the Accords shape how the conflict is currently unfolding, right? And maybe she's right. Iran, because you had kind of this alliance to come together, and Iran is now launching strikes at maybe some of these other Gulf states, and maybe that's where wait, I thought we were an alliance. Now, are we going to help? Like, how is that going to work? Maybe that's kind of where. Maybe that's kind of where they come into play. All right, so I'm just trying to think it through. I don't know if I have a firm enough grasp to be able to say dogmatically how they're connected or not connected. I kind of see what she's saying. If this was kind of alliance and Iran now is just launching attacks at anybody and everybody, maybe then it's like, hey, all of these nations that came together, Iran sees them all as the enemy. Or maybe Iran is just simply striking anywhere and everywhere to create chaos, economic problems, which then leads to increased prices, which typically when governments start being impacted by negative economic situations, they may change their strategy. So maybe it's a military strategy. Now I'm speculating.
I accidentally called him an Arab once. Once.
Don't do
Wow.
that.
Yeah, because there is an ethnic tension between Persians and Arabs and Arabs and Turks and Turks and Persians. There are a lot of ethnic divisions there that we in the West don't fully appreciate, but they're just every bit as divided as we are.
Kurds, Azeris.
Yazidis.
right.
It is one aspect of this, but in fact, it is known that one of the leaders of Hamas, going back to October 7th of 2023, admitted that the reason that they attacked was because Saudi Arabia was on the verge of signing on to the Abraham Accords. And the Saudis, as the most powerful of the Sunni nations in the Gulf region, signing on to normalize relations with Israel. I mean, the UAE's done it, Bahrain has done it, Kuwait has done it. For Saudi Arabia to do it would have been a huge blow to Iran's geopolitical and theopolitical ambitions in the Middle East. They were trying to create, with the help of the Russians, and we'll talk about this over the course of the next few programs, a Shia crescent that extended from Tehran to Beirut.
I will bring this up. You can start looking for reports of Russia providing Iran satellite images, intelligent reports about American bases and satellite images, and may have even led to some of the successful strikes against military installations in the Middle East. And if Russia is helping Iran, okay, well, America, we're focusing all of our attention on Iran. We don't seem to be too, especially the Trump administration, we don't seem to be too worried about their incursion into Ukraine. We don't seem to want to do anything about that instead of helping support that. I mean, when is America going to be, maybe, I remember back in the day where Russia was the bad guys and Russia was dangerous, and all of a sudden we wake up, especially within conservatism and some forms of Christianity, all of a sudden Russia is the good guy and Ukraine is the bad guy, and Russia, and we need to support, like Russia is the Christian nation or something. I don't know what happened. And well, if Russia is helping Iran, is America going to say anything or do anything? Or are we just going to go beat up on Iran? Is that what we're going to do and not do anything about Russia? Or I don't know. And now I hear North Korea now is getting closer to trying to get things built so that they can have missiles that can launch and strike America. Are we going to do anything about that? Or is this just Iran? Is it just Iran that we're upset about? And what is it really about? Because we supposedly obliterated their entire nuclear capability, and all of a sudden they got it back in less than, well, in just a few months. And I don't know exactly what in the world's going on there. Is it about oil? Is it about, do we really care about the protesters that were killed? Because we're not hearing much about them anymore. You can see why there can be some skepticism, all right? And look, you have a right to be skeptical when your government is sending Americans to die. That's when you can go, now we need some clarification here. So, all right.
Until December of 2024, Bashar al-Assad was in control of Syria, and Bashar al-Assad was an Alawite. Now, Alawites are a sect of Shia Islam. They're a minority sect, but they are Shia.
You know what? Christianity has denominations. So does Islam.
Sure.
Yeah.
And because of that, he had to hold together a coalition of Druze, Christians, Alawites to suppress the Sunni majority in Syria, just as in Iraq next door, Saddam Hussein until 2003 as a Sunni strongman, but in the minority, had to hold together a coalition of Kurds, Christians, Yazidis, and Sunnis against the Shia majority. The Middle East is very tribal. Very tribal. The idea that we can impose Western-style democracy on any nation in the Middle East is just a fool's game.
Right.
I will agree with that. If we think we can impose some kind of Western idea of democracy anywhere in the Middle East, anywhere, in Afghanistan and Iraq, anytime we are going to go in and we're going to build democracy, Well, one, why do you think our form of government should be theirs? Why do we think our form of government is so superior that we're like, this is the form of government you need? Why are we telling other nations what kind of government they should and shouldn't have? Like we did in Iran in the 1950s, where we orchestrated a coup and put the person in power that we wanted. Like, why do we do America? I cannot stand that. We think we're so perfect that we can go impose whatever we want on anybody else. So when we say we're going to do a regime change, because what? We're going to put who in charge? Are we going to try to put forth democracy? It's not going to work. It's not going to work. You can't make people accept your form of government because you think your form of government is the best. Or do you just want someone who, I don't know, is nicer to us or will help with oil? Is it about economic concerns? I don't know. But sometimes it's about trying to get we want someone in power but we always have to use fear. Just remember, it always works. If you can scare people to death, oh, we're about to be nuked. We're about to be, they're going to launch a chemical attack in the subways and kill millions. If we can convince people by fear that they're in danger, they will allow the government to do whatever they want. They'll allow the Patriot Act. They'll give up every constitutional right they have if you can convince them of fear. If you'll tell people there's witches in town, you will allow your government to hang innocent women. See the Salem witch trials. But the government knows all you got to do is get people scared, and they will let you do whatever you want to do. They will let you launch all the wars, spend billions a day. Who cares how many Americans die? I just want to be safe. And it's the oldest trick in the book. A little bit of fear, and we'll go with anything. But I completely agree with them there. Trying to put forth a Western democracy in the Middle East is ridiculous. It's foolish. So if you're going to talk about regime change, who do you want in power? Who do you want in power? What do you expect them to do? And if you've already kind of said the Sunni, the Shiites, you've already questioned all of the Islamic groups. Are you going to not let them have an Islamic leader in power? Is that what you're going to try to do? Are you going to try? And why can't we tell other governments what to do? Why can't other governments tell us what to do? When is the governments around the world going to go, hey, America, you guys are idiots for putting Trump in power. We're going to do regime change in America and get rid of him. We would be like, how dare you tell us what to do? We're a sovereign nation. But we don't respect the sovereignty of other nations in some cases.
Right.
Anyway, Tehran, the Ayatollahs wanted to create a Shia crescent to encircle Israel because in the Muslim mind, any land that once belonged to Islam, which Israel did from the time it was conquered in the 7th century, around the year 636 AD, until 1948, it always belongs to Islam. For them, it is a matter of honor, pride, shame that they have not yet reclaimed it. And this is why they want it back. So by breaking the Abraham Accords, the Iranians, and through them their proxies, Hamas and Hezbollah, intended to derail things because by attacking Israel, suddenly you've got the Muslim street, Sunni and Shia, saying, oh, we're going after Israel? Go get him, boys. Mohammed bin Salman, who's the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, and really the power in Saudi Arabia, has said privately, frankly, he just does not care about the Palestinians, but his people do.
Okay.
And so he has to govern very carefully because of that. They can't get too close to Israel publicly. Privately, there's a lot of information and intelligence being exchanged. But yes, this absolutely had a lot to do with the Abraham Accords.
Don't you think it's interesting, though, that we've had President Trump in 2 administrations, and it was divided by the Biden administration? Phase 1, he began the Abraham Accords. He had those 4 years to decide, how am I going to approach the next one? Because I believe the Lord divided those years for a reason.
Yeah.
President Trump came in day one, knowing exactly what he wanted to do. He had it worked out with Netanyahu. He had it worked out with his team. And I'm telling you, that team, Hegseth and Rubio and Vance.
Right. President Trump, I think, has accomplished more. Whether you like him or not, he certainly has accomplished more in the first year plus of this term than he did in all 4 years of his first term.
Don't you think the Lord is really working through him right now?
I do.
I think Trump does realize it to a certain degree. He may not say the things that we want him to say as a believer. He may not live the way we wished he would, but then, we don't either.
None righteous, no, not one.
Exactly. I believe the Lord is working through him.
Yeah. Now, I know that there are some
Okay. I'm not even going to say anything. Oh, Christianity and Trump, man. I just don't get it. There was a day, character matters, morality matters. We need godly leaders. And now it's like, well, nobody's perfect. So, let Trump just say whatever he wants. And he's so perfect. Okay. Oh, okay. I won't even get into that. All right. That's, the insanity there. But all right. Is anybody, we're over an hour. I'm not going to stop. We got like 12 minutes left of audio, probably less than 12 minutes. I got to say something about Psalm 83. Remember, the email attached to this link is this the Psalm 83 war? Okay, guys, we're about 20 something minutes into this. Is it?
Critics who have said, and again, this is coming from the left, they're more afraid of Christians in government than they are of Muslims.
Yes, that's crazy.
Spiritual.
No, not really. If Trump and his administration are Christian, then I'm more afraid of Christians than I am of Islam. All right. Yeah, you can get mad at me. And, it's coming from the left. And don't call me the left because I'm not on the left. I just think what the Trump administration is doing, they're insane. Okay. But if you want me to be honest with you.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
Crazy.
there are some reports out there. Military commanders have been telling their soldiers that this whole war was to prompt Armageddon, as if any Bible-believing Christian with any understanding of prophecy at all would think that somehow we can prompt Jesus to return. No, I think this is fake news.
Yeah.
We're in the middle of an intelligence war, an information.
It's fake news because you don't agree with it? If I guess you've never served in the military, because there's some commanders who said some pretty whacked out things. Okay. So, yeah, it's fake news. Did you go look up and see who do we have names of those leaders? It's fake news just because it doesn't fit to I cannot stand this. If it doesn't agree with us, it's fake news. Or it's just some military commanders saying something you disagree with. Because I know it's crazy to think there's never any disagreements within those who claim to be Christian, is there?
War.
Yeah.
As much as a war on the ground. And as you said in your opening, Joe, what we're hearing from social media and news organizations left and right is to sway public opinion.
Yes,
absolutely. And it is rather interesting that all of these Democratic politicians who have come out and said, nobody wants this war. Bill Maher had a wonderful line after Kamala Harris said, the American people don't want this war. And his response was, who better to know what the American people don't want?
Oh my gosh.
Credit to Bill Maher, who is very liberal himself.
Such a great line.
But the point is, they were all, from Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, saying, boy, if I get in there, I'm going to take out they will never get a nuclear weapon. They never did it. When Trump took steps to do it, now suddenly this is the worst thing ever.
Well, good grief, we had Obama who was airlifting pallets of cash, practically.
Yeah, and Biden even released more money to the IRS.
Okay, here we go. We have to address this. I know we're over an hour because I get sick and tired of hearing this. Okay, so I'm gonna look some things up because I want to make sure I have facts. All right. Okay, hang on. I'm gonna look something up. Okay, I'm gonna look something up. See if I can get some facts. I want to make sure I've got information here. Because this is always, and they talk about misinformation, right? Everybody else says, we can trust Skywatch TV, of course, all right? All right, the money the Obama administration sent to Iran in 2016 was largely Iran's money, all right? The specific payment everyone talks about, $1.7 billion. In January 2016, the U.S. sent Iran $40 million, the principal, $1.3 billion interest, total $1.7 billion, all right? This goes all the way back to the 1970s. Iran, under the Shah, paid the U.S. $400 million for military equipment. The deal was never completed because of the 1979 Iranian Revolution. The U.S. kept the money for decades. Iran filed a legal claim. the U.S. agreed to settle that dispute. So the core $400 million was Iran's money originally. The additional $1.3 billion was interest. The U.S. believes settling for $1.7 billion was cheaper than risking a larger court judgment, which could have been $4 billion more. It wasn't just returning cash, it was a legal settlement. All right? So I cannot stress this enough. I get so sick. He was sending pallets of money. He was just as if he was just like, hey, let's take some money, put it on a pallet. We were giving back their money plus the interest and a little bit more to solve a legal dispute. Because they paid for money and then they gave us the money and then we did not give them what we promised. And so there was a dispute. So let's make that very, very clear. I hear conservatives say this nonsense all the time. If you don't know the history and the facts of what you're talking about, here's a novel idea. Don't talk about it, or at least look it up. All right? Now, we may not have liked it. You could argue, well, who cares we owed it to them? We shouldn't have given that to them. You can make that argument. But the point is, it's their money. We owed them, and there was a legal settlement. Whether you like it or not, that's a whole different case. At least frame it the right way. You can make an argument, well, I still don't think we should have given that to them. You can make that argument, but let's just make it very clear, it was their money.
The Iranians.
Well, let's give them plenty of money so they can build up their arsenal
billions
of
of
nuclear
dollars,
weapons.
and then
Which
funnel
they'll
that to
point
Hamas.
at us, exactly. One of the things that you and I talk about a lot has to do with tribalism, but we're seeing super tribes built.
Yeah.
We're
was gonna
seeing
ask you about
a Muslim super tribe built worldwide. We're seeing a Christian super tribe built in some ways, but it's relatively small. But we are also having an allegedly Christian super tribe in the Pan-Rus movement.
Yeah.
This idea of creating, I guess you can say, a massive coalition of Russian-led countries that begins with Russia. That's why they took over parts of Ukraine.
Yeah, it's a Eurasian movement, and the philosophical thinker behind this is a man named Alexander Dugin, who's been called Putin's brain. Mm-hmm. Now, don't know how much influence he actually has over Vladimir Putin, but he wrote a book 1997 on geopolitics that's actually become required reading in Russian military academies.
And the cover of that book has the symbol for chaos on
Chaos
it.
magic, right, yeah. So Dugin is an occultist, and sadly, some of his ideas are now being propagated to Americans through prominent right-wing, or say conservative, maybe in air quotes, podcasters and
Alt-right.
influencers. Alt-right, yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we want to remind you that Skywatch TV is a viewer-supported ministry, and your partnership is what allows this broadcast to continue reaching the four corners.
Okay, well, at this point, I don't know if they're ever going to talk about Psalm 83. So we're going to go a little bit further. I mean, there's only like maybe 5 minutes left.
Corners of the world with the gospel of Jesus Christ through television, streaming, and digital platforms. First and foremost, we ask you for your prayers. Please pray that God continues to strengthen and sustain this ministry as we face the many challenges that come with keeping a faith-based voice on the air in today's world. And if you'd like to stay connected with everything we're doing, you can download the free Skywatch TV mobile app from the App Store to follow all of our programs anytime, anywhere. The app also makes it simple for those who feel led to support this ministry financially, even setting up secure monthly giving with just the tap of a button. And whenever you visit skywatchtvstore.com, your participation through our books, special packages, DVDs, and audio series helps support the ministry as well, while giving you access to in-depth Bible teaching, insights into the prophetic timeline, and important news from around the world as it unfolds. So if you'd like to stand with us today and pledge your support, simply scan the QR code on your screen using the camera app on your phone. You can also visit us at skywatchtvstore.com or call 1-844-750-4985 if you'd like assistance or prefer to speak with someone directly. And again, we thank you for standing with Skywatch TV in our continued mission to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ to the entire world.
And I will say, if you want to keep up with Skywatch TV, download the app because their podcast feed is trash. On a number of their podcast apps, if you look up Skywatch TV, it's like episodes from 2024. I don't know what happened to their podcast feed. So go to their app. If you want to keep up with it, they do upload a lot of content. Obviously, I don't agree with a lot of what they have to say, but you can have it as a resource to hear their perspective, because I'm not afraid of any perspective. So go listen to them if you want, hear what they have to say. Obviously, I'm having some major issues with some of the things they're saying because some of the things have not been the most accurate, especially about Obama sending money. They didn't provide any context for that. And they left out what America did to Iran in 1953.
So I've been reading through the Old Testament again. So all of this is very interesting because reading through that, a lot of that information is coming out again. And it was talking about nation against nation, tribe against tribe, and that conflict. Is that what's going on right now?
Oh my goodness, yes. In fact, Jesus even references that, saying that at the last days, we're going to see that very thing happening.
Yeah.
So when
Matthew 24 about war and rumors of war is a reference to 70 AD, not to 2026. Okay? Anybody can read their Bible, can figure that out. Oh, I'm going to get to, okay, I got to be calm. Ladies and gentlemen, my calm approach, Matthew 24, for the most part, is about 70 AD, not 2026. All right. So, all right, let's see now. Or do we get to Psalm 83 now? Here we go.
these groups are trying to, like the Penrith movement, are trying to build a super tribe, it's not going to hold together, and we're told that too.
Yeah. When Jesus said nation against nation, that's how it's translated into English, but the Greek word is ethnos.
Right.
And that means ethnic. So
Yeah,
we're talking
tribe.
against tribe. What's fascinating, though, is, as Sharon mentioned earlier, Iran attacking all of its neighbors, because many of these Arab neighbors have been friendly, especially Qatar. And the UAE, which was sort of the financial lifeline for Iran. Iran had been cut out of many of the global banking networks like SWIFT by the United States, so they couldn't get in and reconcile bank transfers and things like that. A lot of their money's been frozen in accounts in the West. But the United Arab Emirates has been willing to allow them to do their banking through, Dubai, and allowed them then to get paid by China for oil that it's sending to China, for example. And now Iran is throwing missiles at the UAE. And so the UAE is saying, oh, no, that's it. Your banking is now cut off. Qatar has given the Iranian, as of this recording, a week to get out of the country, the Iranian ambassadors. And Qatar is also going to kick the leadership of Hamas out of the country, which is a huge change. I mean, these are big changes.
Yes.
Because Qatar was the one Gulf Sunni nation that had not sort of moderated their political and religious influences. Most of the other monarchies in the region, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, Jordan, they like things stable. It's like, hey, I'm king. This is a pretty sweet gig. If we start engaging in jihad, you get people riled up and give them weapons, things get a little unstable. That's not good for business. It's not good for kings who tend to start losing their heads. But Qatar was all in on the Muslim Brotherhood, which wants to reestablish the caliphate, which connects to Turkey, and we'll talk about that in an upcoming episode. But suddenly Qatar is now with the UAE, with Saudi Arabia, with the other Sunni Gulf nations, and saying, Iran, what are you doing?
Some of this relates to the Abraham Accords.
Yes.
But also, we just saw yesterday or the day before that Pakistan, and as the time we're recording this,
Right.
Pakistan has now entered the fight.
Yes, which is really an uncomfortable situation for the Pakistanis because they border on Iran, and they've had some border skirmishes. In fact, they lobbed missiles at each other back in 2024.
They did.
And they managed to cool that down before things got out of hand. But yeah, Pakistan signed a defense agreement with the Saudis and said, okay, we will defend them. And then their foreign minister stepped up and said, and we will really, really do it. And so the Saudis are like, okay, oil, Straits of Hormuz. So now the Pakistanis have sort of been shamed into sending a warship to try to start escorting ships through that critical choke point through which 20% of the world's oil flows.
And Pakistan is a nuclear country.
A nuclear power, right. So things are, really interesting here as we're getting tribe against tribe, nation against nation. But the coalitions aren't forming up the way a lot of us who've been looking at Bible prophecy for a long time. It's like we're having to redo our charts and our graphs. It's like,
Should never have written that
wait a
in.
minute. In fact, somebody was asking me on social media the other day, could this be the Psalm 83 war, which Bill Salas has written about, where Edom and the Ishmaelites, Saudi Arabia, Moab, the Jordanians and Palestinians of the West Bank, the Hagrites being Egypt, Gival, which is a city in ancient Phoenicia, so probably referring to Hezbollah, Ammon, Jordan, Amalek, the Bedouins in the Sinai Peninsula, Philistia, that's Gaza, Tyre, again, Hezbollah, Ashur, Assyria, Syria, northern Iraq, all coming together in Psalm 83 as a coalition against Israel. But it's like, okay, Jordan, no, they've been shooting down Iranian missiles and drones. Saudis shooting down drones. No, all of these guys are now suddenly on Israel's side. What do we make of that? Most of these nations have fought against Israel since 1946, even before Israel became a nation. They have all either been subdued or are now siding with Israel. So Psalm 83 may already have been fulfilled.
Wow.
Do you guys see why I asked the Gilberts to come here today and help us navigate all these complex parts of history and cultures and nations and the actors and the enemies and the alliances? And you can see in the Gilberts' wheels this giant spiderweb blueprint with little tacks. And
Okay. I don't know why you brought them in, because a lot of this information is questionable, but okay, the whole Psalm 83 thing, what in the name of bubblegum are they even talking about? All right. I'm going to go through this quickly, but calmly. All right. Are you ready? What Psalm 83 actually is? It's written by Asaph. You can see that in the title for Psalm 83. It is a part of the book of Psalms. That's when we say Psalm 83. Oh, that's deep, right? It is poetry. It's not narrative. It's not apocalyptic prophecy. It is poetry. We would place this within the genre of a lament or an imprecatory prayer. So it's a lament or it's an imprecatory prayer. Keep that in mind. Psalm 83 is essentially a prayer asking God to act against a coalition of enemies who want to destroy Israel. That's what it's asking for, right? The key elements, enemies say, let us cut them off from being a nation. I think that's verse 4 of Psalm 83. It gives a list of surrounding nations, Edom, Moab, Ammon, Philistia, etc. All right? The psalmist asks God to defeat them like he did in the past. And the goal is that the nations would know that God, the Lord is God. So Psalm 83, Israel is under threat. It is a prayer for divine intervention. It is poetic and theological. It's not a timeline prediction. It is a lament. It's an imprecatory prayer. All right? Think of it as a national lament and response to invasion threats. That's a good way of understanding it, all right? Now, there are a lot of approaches to Psalm 83 within Christendom throughout church history, but there's really only two main serious approaches. I'll say there's only two main serious approaches. The first one will say the historical view, and I think this is the most consistent with the text. Psalm 83 is referring to ancient coalitions against Israel. probably during the time of David, First Chronicles time frame, like chapter 18 or 19. Maybe you could connect it to later Assyrian threats during the Assyrian era. The named nations, they match ancient neighbors of Israel. They are not to be connected to modern day geopolitical states. That's not the way this works, right? The Psalms function as they are responding to real situations. They are typically prayers. They are laments. They are not predictions. View number 2 is that this is a generalized prayer. It's not tied to any one event. It could represent repeated threats Israel faced because they constantly were under threat. And it may function as a template. Some may say, well, Psalm 83 is a template. Whenever Israel is threatened, Psalm 83 can be prayed. Some would try to go that way. I think it's more historical, and it's the prayer being given and the call for God to intervene during the time the psalm was being written. Right? Now, where does this Psalm 83 war come from? This idea of this. It comes from modern day prophecy teachers. They treat Psalm 83 as a future military prophecy. They try to match ancient tribes to modern nations, which you heard him do that really quick. They try to take biblical enemies and then they try to connect them to current Middle East actors. Oh, that's Iran. That's Hamas. No, that's just pure speculation. Some try to claim a coming coalition war or that a modern conflict is a fulfillment. Others claim, oh no, this was fulfilled in 1948. Others claim it was fulfilled in 1967. Others say it hasn't happened. It's going to happen in the future. All of them are misunderstanding the genre of literature which we find in Psalm 83. Psalm 83 is not presented as prophecy. It's written as a prayer, not a prediction. Oh God, do not remain silent. It is a petition. It is not prophecy. If you compare it with actual prophecy, maybe in Isaiah, Ezekiel, or Daniel, there's no future timeline. There's no symbolic vision. It's more looking backward, not forward, other than maybe forward for God to help them in that particular situation. All right? So, there you go. There we go. So they did finally address Psalm 83. I thought the whole episode was going to be about Psalm 83, and it wasn't. But we got to talk a lot about the current situation with Iran. You can hear some of my feelings about it. And yeah, so there you go. I wish I could do more, but we're at 87 minutes, so we'll stop right there. So there you go. Kind of an impromptu Sunday afternoon episode. I hope that was beneficial. I hope it was helpful. Hopefully I didn't make too many people angry. But yeah, if someone starts talking about a Psalm 83 war, the war that you need to fight is a war on hermeneutics, because I don't know what in the world is going on when people say that. All right. Thank you for listening. Everyone have a great day. God bless.